Dundee is the bingo capital of the world. Dundee women love bingo.
It's a group of women, from young to old, on their big night out. A bit of empowerment, a bit like a female football crowd, and they're in charge.
41.
Women have to have a strong character, especially in Dundee. When you go back to when they worked in the mills, they didn't just work an 8-hour day, they worked 12 hours at least. If not, they would work longer.
To meet a Dundee woman, or a group of Dundee women, is both an exhilarating and sometimes a terrifying experience.
Dundee has been known as SheToon and as a town run by women.
House! 50. 5 and 7, 57. 33. All the threes, 33. 1 and 7, 17. Hey! Claim on 17.
The whole thing about it is very intimidating. It's really bright and everybody's kind of got their own seats, and if you sit in somebody's regular seat you get dirty looks and kind of assaulted with these magic markers.
Oh, it's serious business, I tell you. The lawyers come out as soon as you go in the bingo hall. You want to hear where's my lawyer? You want to hear what the callers get, Greg?
To start with, I just was really scared. It's just like big gangs of women. Half of them are like a wee bit drunk, and you've got the grannies that sort of flirt with you, and then you've got the younger ones, and you've got the mothers, and it's just, there is nowhere else like that.
Young lassies.
Oh, they sit and giggle.
They sit and wink to the caller later.
They sit and giggle practically all
Never
night.
told you, but it never makes any difference. Nelly, wouldn't make any difference. There's more than that could wink to them and they wouldn't get any difference.
I like that nobody's embarrassed to go on their own. I like that some women go and they've done their hair and their makeup looks great and they've maybe got on something nice. And I like the other ones that go that look like they haven't washed ever and they're just there. And I just like that kind of atmosphere. I like everybody's welcome.
I think it's also a huge social occasion. I mean, it is primarily women who play bingo and they go out and meet in huge groups. They have a great night, they can have a drink, they can sort of meet and socialise, they can still get their bus home at a reasonable time.
There's very few guys there, and the ones that are there are just basically told to sit in the corner and drink their pint or go and get the next round in.
When I think of bingo, it always conjures up memories of Dens Road Market in Dundee, which was an old mill that had been converted into just a big market. Once half of it sold second-hand clothes and bric-a-brac and antiques, and the other side had a kind of bingo section and a lovely cafe. And the bingo caller in Dens Road Market had a very distinctive style which could be heard all over the market. And all the 2s, 22, 2 and 4, and it was a kind of sing-song style that would just put you off your mince.
Now, that was quick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
he was two-faced, was he? 1010, 1012, 2020. And that's the way it went.
The heart of Dens Road Market to me was that bingo, and it would sit right in the middle and people would sit around there with their sort of fags hanging out of their mouth, like playing the bingo, and it was like you had to put 10p in the slot constantly.
I always remember playing this prize bingo at Dens Road Market on these plastic boards with wee sliding doors, and you had to slide over your numbers, and that was how you ended up winning these wonderful prizes, which could be like great big ceramic panthers and things like that, and lovely jardinières. That was the thing I remember. Big sort of pottery things with a pot on the top, covered in gold, sort of gilt kind of flowers and things. They were bonny.
I've always known it's been very, very popular with the women of Dundee, and it may well be that it's almost an acceptable form of gambling. I think possibly the men would go to the bookies and the women would play bingo.
I think it's one thing women can do that's reasonably respectable, you know. Women who maybe wouldn't go out carousing in the pub all night, they can go to the bingo with their pals and have a wee libation while they're there.
You really do feel that, you know, you're perfectly welcome and at home there, and yes, it's a kind of community.
I could go myself. It doesn't bother me to go on my own. I go on Sunday afternoon, like, and there's a woman sitting beside me, and her me's got a friendly, and every week she gives me a tin of juice and a chocolate biscuit and a packet of crisps. I says, Zena, I didn't want that. Oh, it's dark.
Yeah, it's just like the mills, is it? You go in, and through time, if you've been 2 or 3 times, they get to ken you.
You sit down and somebody speaks to you, and then when you're coming away, they'll say cheerio. Cheerio.
Next time you go and you see them, hiya. You know, you make friends. It keeps, especially women, because there's more women on their own than men, especially in Dundee. It's famous for it.
Dundee's economy was built by women. Everybody I know has female relatives who all worked in the mills and built up the jute industry in Dundee. And I mean, a lot of the mills wouldn't employ anything other than women. And so women have always, in Dundee, always been able to earn their own money and be quite self-reliant.
Jute, jam and journalism. That's spelled Dundee. Jute, jam and journalism. And the greatest of these was jute.
There's about 100,000 people out of 180,000 make their living by it one way or another.
No other Scottish city was as dependent upon a single industry as Dundee was, and there was a higher proportion of married women working in textiles in Dundee than any other textile centre in Scotland, anywhere other perhaps than Paisley. And so it was very much a women's industry. There was a view amongst employers, certainly in the early stages, that women were more docile than men, that they were more easily controlled, if you like, in the workplace environment. But actually, over time, what happened is that Dundee females lost any docility that they might have had outside the mills and were very, very hard bargainers.
It could have been wages, it could have been hours, it could have been cotton toilet time, because we had to run across the mill and up a stair to the toilet. You know, it never happened. I think it only happened once in one work I was in. I just ignored it. If I wanted to, I went. You know, and if he says, get your books down the stair, I say, right, I'm off.
The women would march down through the city centre, down to the Cowgate, which is where the masters' offices tended to be, where the merchanting centre of Dundee was, and sing and dance and try to intimidate sexually their masters through humiliation.
We were out one time, we were standing in the Cowgate one time.
Aye.
Can't I remember? It was about one particular worker, and she was a great worker. But the foreman seemed to have a grudge against her.
Oh, you got that sometimes.
And it was bad, because she was a nice person, but he seemed to have that grudge against Lily, and that's how we came out. We were all standing in the Cowgate, and they sent for the union. So they had to give her job back.
Dundee has been known as a radical town, and a town where women have not sort of accepted their conditions and have fought and organised against them at a time when it's quite unheard of for women to do that.
They all worked hard, they had to. Their men didn't work, there wasn't any work for them. Some of them were just lazy louts anyway, didn't want to work.
Men in Dundee found it harder to find employment than women did, and men may have stayed at home and adopted or undertaken more of the domestic duties perhaps than other Scottish cities.
Ships came from all over the world to Dundee.
Aye, we were getting rich in Dundee. All that meant more work for the men, though they still said marry a Dundee wife and give up work.
Aye, marry a Dundee wife and be a kettle boiler.
Kettle boiler. A man that used to run up
A
at
man
10
that
to
stayed
12.
at home didn't work. His wife worked, but he didn't work. So he was a kettle boiler.
10 to 12. Up the stair, get the kettle on for her, coming in for her work. That's a kettle boiler.
That was a kettle boiler.
But there was no work for the men.
He didn't work.
Mills were hard, but you had to work for it to get your money. So you couldn't have a soft nature and work in a mill, then come home and feed all your breed of children that you had.
It always seemed to be the case that the women were not only big in stature, but they were just big in the household, and they just ran the show.
What you want?
When I was young and had the bairns, like, all you done was work and look after bairns and cook the meals. And because my man helped a lot too, he was a good help. I mean, I couldn't have taught another man because I wouldn't have got another in like him.
Just a little bit.
What I remember from like my elderly female relatives, that they all had really loud voices, like they would bawl and shout at you. And possibly that's because, you know, they spent so long in the mills having to shout above the noise of heavy machinery, and they'd all gone half deaf as a result, you know.
They're very loud, no deference whatsoever. I mean, if you're a man, you expect, well, you have no mercy. You're given no mercy.
I'm on my third one. Never had an anniversary yet.
Neither have I.
Nah.
Oh no,
No,
once
we
on the
had one.
merry-go-round's
Nah.
enough for me.
Nah, I like variety.
Well, put your pension book in the drawer and
Spice of life.
it.
Yeah, do say variety's the spice of
Oh,
life.
it is, take my word for it, it is.
I think the kind of long history of women working in Dundee and like being the sort of, a lot of the time being the kind of main provider in the family has led to Dundee women having very low expectations of men. Like if he's got his own benefit book, he's a catch kind of thing, you know.
These were independent women with a good sense of who they were and what their value was. And so one had a lot of female promenading in Dundee. That is, after the mills and works had closed, they would get dressed up in their finery and march up and down Perth Road, singing, dancing, carrying on, looking for men.
I always remember when I was a wee girl going to meet them in the town on a Saturday. And I mean, these were women who went to their work every day and like with their hair tied up so it wouldn't get caught in the machines, rollers in and overalls and, you know, up to their arse and stour all day. And on a Saturday they would meet in the town. They would all be so well presented, you know, with their best gear on, the matching handbags and shoes and the hats and the nice brooches and all the rest of it. And I just remember that was their treat, was to go into the town on a Saturday all dressed up in the finery and then go to the cinema at night, and like out of their whole work week, that was their treat.
The cinema, really from the 1920s, was enormously important for the working classes in industrial cities. They were luxurious places and they were dark and they offered an escape into a very different world than the world in which ordinary Dundonians, say, inhabited, of miserable housing and long working hours and low pay.
In constructing the playhouse, every care has been taken to give Dundee a picture house of the very finest and in keeping with the traditions of this great city.
Money was found, or ways were found, to get into the pictures as often as possible. And that was facilitated in a variety of ways. Cinema proprietors would shoot a minute of film of workers leaving a works. And of course, the intention of that was to draw those people into the cinema, because they didn't say, look, that's me, or that's my auntie, or that's my granny.
I can remember that was more or less the only entertainment there was in Dundee on a Saturday night. You would maybe play football or whatever in the afternoon, and everybody seemed to go to the cinema on Saturday night, but there seemed to be cinemas in every single street.
There is seating accommodation for over 4,000 persons. It is worthy of notice that the store's area is not only the largest in Europe, but possibly the largest in the world.
It was a place where everybody did their courting. People used to go really early on, you know, to get into the back rows of the cinema. The classic one was the greens.
We had the kissing seats, did we, Nelly?
Chummy seats.
Ah, the chummies. They were
The
great,
chummy seats.
especially if you got a sale, there'd be plenty of money. You were all right. Because the Dundee boys give you chips and thought they would get everything. Not on your Nelly Dean. But the sailors coming into Dundee, they were only here for 2 or 3 days. And they had the big settees, and it used to swing a wee bit back and forth. As soon as he put his arm in, he bound you went.
I seem to remember reading somewhere the reason for Dundee having as many cinemas as it did, and I think that was probably the reason that bingo became as popular as it did. I think they just had to find some other outlet, you know, other use for the cinemas, and bingo just seemed to be the thing that fitted the bill.
I think all the main halls across the country are in old cinemas. Certainly the one that I used to work in was an old cinema. It's very grand, there's a balcony. The front where the caller stands is like basically the old screen.
There used to be just the cinema seats, and everybody was sitting in a long row. Well, you had a board to lean your book on. It's much better now.
wages in the jute industry were very, very low compared to most of the other textiles in Scotland and indeed in Britain. So Dundee is a peculiarly low-wage economy in that respect. So that the low wages generally and their variability means that saving for the future isn't really an option. You're living for the day, and if you want something better, you need to obtain that through some unusual means, which might be gambling.
There's something really optimistic about a lot of people's attitude to going along to bingo. You know, they see it as a good night out and a good laugh, but there's always that, you know, chance that, you know, this week they could be lucky.
I like the fact that everybody's involved, that everybody's excited the same way. And I think it's hilarious when somebody's won and then all the gabble, gabble, gabble starts and everybody starts chatting.
2 and 7, 27. 7-0, 70. Claymont 70.
Oh, you're getting on
Discuss
so well,
correct and Brian brown page next. Thanks to that. One winner, the house is closed. On your brown page next then. Play for any single line. The first number is 4 and 3, 43.
And then it goes silent again, and you know, I would never think about having a conversation during the game, or you know, maybe very quietly I would say, oh, I might not do. But that would be about all, and I love that.
3 and 8, 38.
You're sitting there, and that's basically all there is. There's the number that comes up on the table, and there's the caller's voice, and that's it.
6 and 9, 69. Claymont 69.
Everything else is just unimportant.
You can feel the concentration, especially with the national game. It's like really, really major. Just all focusing on their books, and that's it. Nothing will distract them.
I seen a woman collapsing in the bingo, but it didn't stop the game or anything. Because somebody around about her was kind of upset. But
naturally.
But they just kept on playing.
Aye. It's the same when the fire alarms go off. Nobody pays any attention
Nobody
to them.
moved out.
But that night there were a smell coming up from the kitchen.
it was
We were
definitely
upstairs.
fire.
There were fire somewhere. Nobody budged. We're all sitting there playing with bingo and the smell's getting stronger and stronger. Coughing and spluttering. Still looking for a house through tears.
3 and 4, 34. 7 and 1.
A lot of Dundee's elderly women have had to have agile minds and good concentration skills because of the work that they did. And I think perhaps going to the bingo is a kind of substitute for that, and it helps keep them on their toes.
It must involve incredible skill and concentration, and I think it's quite competitive. Although it is a game of chance, I think people feel that there are systems and that there are ways that you can win.
In the clubs, you've got the 2-3-4 or a 2-4-2.
And the first 7 numbers.
3-3-3 or a 2-5-2. Yeah. You have to get 2 on top line, 5 in the middle and 2 on the bottom line. Or 2-3-4. 3 in the middle and 4 on the bottom.
4 on the bottom. Or all the corners, or a Union Jack with the corners and the one in the middle.
I find the kind of uniformity of it all and all the rules, you know, really quite intimidating. It's very, very rigid and very, very structured. And it's like a kind of... people do kind of, although it's a night out, people kind of view it as a real kind of task. They get, you know, they get right down to doing it. It's like a kind of job sometimes. And you see these women who are like 80 after a day with all these books in front of them, and they're, you know, managing to kind of get through them absolutely no problem.
What could be difficult is if you're waiting on one there and one there and one there, you've got to remember them, because you just shout as soon as it comes out, you know you're waiting on them. Yeah.
When I was first playing bingo, I didn't even like to smoke a fag and play bingo at the same time because it was going so fast. And then once you've been a few times, it's not so fast, and you think you're quite clever because you can smoke your fag, drink your juice and still carry on.
Does your mind no wander?
Oh, your mind wanders, right enough, yeah. Especially if you're near it, you think what you're going to do with the money you might want.
41. 4 and 1, 41. We're declaring on instant on 41. Do we have any further claims?
The national game is basically what it's all about. That's why they're there. That's the one that they all look forward to. That's the one that everybody plays.
They play a theme tune. Everybody kind of does this, and if you're on your own, you might not be doing the wee dance, but you're still really happy that it's that time again. It's coming up. It could be you. You never know.
It's a link up right around the country, a live link with all the bingos across the country. And there's a lot of money to be won. It's around £100,000.
It's time for the numbers to roll. Go! And then that's it, you be quiet. And it's welcome everybody from Links Bingo Hall and, you know, wherever they are. And it's quite exciting. You always think it could be you.
I've played bingo in the Mecca along the road there, and it was the first time I'd ever been. My mum goes religiously, and she hadn't won for a long, long time. The first time I ever went, I won £500, which was a real kind of kick in the teeth for my mother. She'd have moved like a cat's arse after that, but never mind.
7 and 4, 74. Checking 2 cards.
We've had one winner when I've been there, the National, and the place goes mad. Everybody is really happy that the game has been won in their hall.
The national prize that night was 50,000 and it was great. It was really exciting. Everybody was really so happy for her. It was a great feeling. But the funny thing I thought was I've seen her maybe 10 times at the bingo since.
I think once you've had a win, you will go back for more. And even if you only win 20, 30 quid in a small game, you get a buzz out of that and you want that again and you will go back. And yeah, it's the same people week in, week out, the same groups, the same tables. I think they're quite superstitious in that way.
Yeah, superstitious about your seat. You're superstitious about who you're with. A lucky pen or a lucky dam.
Or see her, she never wins, I'm not sitting beside her.
Tiger Crystal, oh so wise, helped me win a big cash prize. I used to write that on the back of my book and really think, well now that's got to be it. And I would maybe sit my crystal beside my books or hold it in my hand even. But I know that I'm not the only one. Everybody seems to have something.
I collected things out the crackers. I took them for mascots, like wee boats or wee donkeys or something like that. I use them as mascots.
I've got a Buddha. I got for a friend in Edinburgh out in an antique shop, and I was awfully lucky with that. I won for 6 months. Whole 6 months I won. Then he sort of fell out with me. I says, he's fell out with me, but Jean had never won. Yeah. For nearly about a year, I says, you take it, Jean, see if he'll win for you. And she won.
I won. Then he fell out with me.
Then he fell out with me, so I taken him back and I put him in the shed.
And the night we put him back in the shed, we went to bingo that night and we won.
Yeah.
Now, Jimmy Smith told me, for every pound of tata on that board, you got 11 shillings. They got 11 shillings, you got 9.
Aye, that was then, Nelly.